sedentary lifestyle and not timing your moving to correspond with your meals. Many people eat late at night, then go to bed and undereat through the day. That is not a very good schedule, and you can call that intermittent fasting, but watch one of my other podcasts on intermittent fasting. It's the wrong administration of that if that's what you're doing.
Hi, welcome to the Judy Terrell Show, where I explore topics intended to optimize every body 50, 60, 70, and above.
Hi everybody, and welcome to your Second 50. Insulin resistance. It's a very hot topic right now, and it is the underlying mechanism under many of our chronic diseases, and yet it goes undiagnosed for years, even if you're getting normal blood panels on your annual physicals. Many of my clients have it, and they come to me because they want to know what they can do to avoid the chronic illnesses before they manifest. Welcome everybody, I'm Judy Terrell, and I am a board-certified health coach, a behavioralist, in that I program clients day after day, year after year for 40 some odd years now to make behavioral changes so that they can improve their weight, they can improve their health, and they can improve their fitness and energy. All right, I work with people to identify the symptoms of insulin resistance so that we can make lifestyle changes before it becomes a chronic illness that is now diagnosed when you go to your healthcare provider. All right, so let's talk about it, because when I'm working one-on-one with clients, we bring it up and it's in the conversation, and then I'll say to somebody, well, what is insulin resistance? Do you know? What do you know about it? And they look at me like, a doe in headlights. So let's talk about what it actually is. All right, insulin is a hormone naturally secreted by our body. We need it. It's a very good hormone. Not that oral hormones are bad. They're all kind of balancing each other. But insulin is the hormone that when we eat and blood sugar rises, it is the mechanism, the transporter that takes the sugar, glucose, out of the blood and brings it into the muscles and the cells so that it can be burned as energy or stored as fat. All right? And when that mechanism is working great, all is well. But what happens with insulin resistance is that it's kind of like the mechanism is getting gunked up because there's too much and a chronically high level, or too much episodically, a lot at one time, but repetitively coming into the human body. And so the mechanism of the insulin, it gets thwarted. It's kind of like a metabolic roadblock. And now blood sugar is left high and circulating. So then the pancreas tries to produce more insulin. And then you get on this kind of like chronically increasing high blood sugar, high pancreas output, and then the cells start to get a little bit like white noise. They get gunked up. The receptor sites are not really able to process it well. Then their pancreas creates more insulin, and then after a certain amount of time, you get insulin resistance. And basically what that means is that your body's producing a high amount of insulin, but it's not being received or heard by the cells, and therefore you've got a lot of sugar chronically circulating in your blood, doing damage to organs. So what does insulin resistance manifest like? Before it gets diagnosed as a chronic disease like diabetes type 2 or dementia and Alzheimer's and cognitive decline, which is now getting labeled as diabetes type 3, having to do with high levels of sugar hitting in the brain and insulin resistance. But what are the symptoms that you might recognize or notice in your body if you are struggling with insulin resistance, but there's nothing on your blood work yet that is, indication that you've got a problem going on? All right, these are some of the symptoms. When you eat, you get very tired afterwards. It's almost like narcoleptic. It's like you need to take a nap. After you eat, you get intense sweet cravings. And it doesn't have to be just after you eat, but a lot of times it is just after you eat, because again, you're taking in the nutrition and the calories and the sugars and the amino acids and the fatty acids, but they're not really, the sugar is not getting delivered into the cells. So it's almost like the sugar's stuck in your blood, unable to go into where it is needed, and then you're feeling like malnourished, like low energy, as if you didn't eat for like a day straight. Okay, it's like the insulin is not doing its job, so that blood sugar is almost like it's only a tiny little bit getting in where it needs to get burnt for energy, and you feel, tired. And then your brain's gonna say, hey, we're not getting what we need, and then you're gonna get intense cravings. All right, so those are two very common symptoms. Another one is a developing amount of belly fat. All right, there's two types of belly fat. There's the visceral fat on the inside that you don't see, but then there's the subcutaneous fat. That's that, post-menopause pooch. It's that large extended belly in men. This is a sign of insulin resistance. So these are the most common things that you'll attribute to other things, but it is definitely the underlying mechanism is insulin resistance. All right. Now, why do you care about that? All right. So maybe you just eat a little bit more, or you make sure you're taking a nap or whatever. Well, this is why you should care, because insulin resistance is the underlying mechanism for high blood pressure and stroke. It is the underlying mechanism that's incubating for years, if not decades, in cognitive decline and dementia, and most likely Alzheimer's as well. It is involved in hormonal dysregulation. So PCOS, if you're a younger woman, and definitely after women go through menopause, we are now insulin resistant because estrogen kind of facilitated insulin sensitivity, and now we don't have that. Even if you're on the hormone replacement, it's not the same amount of estrogen, so you are more insulin resistant post-menopause. And men, don't think you got away with anything, because in the clients I work, once a man's over 60, changes to aging digestive systems, hormonal changes and shifts in your body, you are also insulin resistant. Okay, what also insulin resistance is going to contribute to is the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver. All right, again, goes undiagnosed until you've got problems, and by then you've got big problems. All right, so it's definitely much better to arrest this early on as it's incubating. Right, so I hope you've sold you on that we need to get at this before it actually manifests as a disease. I hope that you're understanding a little bit more about it. And now let's talk about what can you do about it, okay? There's a lot of day-to-day behavioral things that I teach my clients that I'm gonna talk to you about right now that really do work. It does work to reverse this insulin resistance, because there's really no damage done yet, okay? When you're in the insulin resistance phase, it's not till it manifests as a chronic disease where you've got damage that, it's gonna take a lot more to back out of, and maybe in some cases it might actually be irreversible because so much damage had been done. So let's back up and let's get at it before it gets to that, right? When you have tried all the programs and done all the right things, and yet you still can't lose the weight that you're trying to lose, and you're a male or female over 50, now is the time for you to look into my program, Your Second 50.life. It includes online video support. You can download video and PDFs for an eating plan and exercise plan appropriate for the over 50. It includes group support on a monthly basis, and perhaps even more importantly, it includes weekly individualized coaching specific to you. Having the generalized plan is a good thing. I have helped literally thousands of people to lose weight over the 43 years I've been in practice, and I'd like to help you too. So, number one, after you eat, one of the best things you can do is go for a walk or do some sort of physical output for like 10 to 15 minutes. So I've got a lot of clients, I tell them, you time your workouts, and not even your formal workouts, but don't go for a walk and then come back and have lunch. Have lunch and then go out for your walk if you're somebody who likes to walk at lunch. And it can be anything. It could be like, what you're reading and hearing about on social media right now is these exercise snacks. And basically what that means is, doing 45 squats, to the chair, maybe doing a set of push-ups on your desk, going out for that 10-minute, brisk walk, and then coming back in, and going back to work or whatever it is that you're doing during the afternoon. After dinner, again, going out for a walk, or, maybe catching a quick game of tennis with somebody, or go swing some golf clubs, or maybe that's a time to play pickleball, if you're in a place where you have access to that after the dinner hour. So in other words, exercising and getting, when you are revving up your energy needs right after you've eaten, that is like insulin, okay? Your body is now demanding, the muscle cells are demanding that it needs that fuel to come in. And so if you are incubating insulin resistance, you're kind of overriding that by demanding more energy by doing something physical, right? You could turn on the radio or, a podcast or something, or a playlist, and then just dance around, your house. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just moving. But I'm going to tell you, you got to target about 10 minutes, right? Because you got to have enough calorie need so that you are drawing that sugar out of the blood, okay? Along the same lines, this is one of the reasons why, over 50, weight training and muscle development is so in vogue right now, because muscles demand, substrate to stay alive more so than fat cells. So they need sugar to just stay alive, let alone operate. So the more muscle you have on your body, the more you are countering potential insulin resistance. Sarcopenia is too little muscle. This is happening to a lot of people over 60 years old, and that is contributing to not only poor function as we age, but also insulin resistance. So I'm not saying that everyone has to turn into like a muscle-bound creature. Like, I will look at a lot of influencers that are in my age group, 62 and older, who are really they've just got a ton of muscle. I personally don't want that look, and I can tell you that 90% of the clients I work with don't want that look either. But there's a difference between having over muscle and really chiseled and defined, and good for you if that's what you're looking for and that's what you want, great. I'm just commenting that most of the clients that I work with are not looking for that. But there's not going for that doesn't mean that you don't want to have a base level of healthy muscle on your body. And body composition scales can help you to determine that. When I'm working with clients one-on-one, I do a whole body analysis, and then I tell them if they're in the healthy range for muscle, and if not, we want to build some so that not only is that going to help you function as you age, not only is that going to help bone density, it's also going to help with insulin resistance, all right? Now, insulin resistance can also occur not just from, not moving or not having enough muscle. It can also occur because you're eating too much highly processed foods. And I'm going to tell you right now that it's like 80% of the food that's out for public consumption, definitely in the United States right now, is ultra processed. And I want to clarify what I mean by that, because there's a lot of misinformation about this and misunderstanding. Ultra processed foods are things that have been taken from their whole food form, and then kind of taken into pieces, and then either chemically treated or dry, put into powders, and then added with other powders and things to make a food. And now, why is that so bad for us? Two main things. Number one, the calorie density is so high because, for instance, a protein powder is going to be 100 calories per ounce, whereas 1 ounce of chicken is 30 calories, okay? So the density of the ultra-processed foods is very high, and so even if you're not eating a lot of it, you're going to be above your calorie needs, oftentimes with sugars added, and so that's a weight gain equation as well as insulin resistance equation. And the second reason why ultra-processed foods are not good for us is because they go through our system really fast, okay? I've got a lot of clients that are they're using all these protein powders and protein bars, and it's viral now, the number of products that are being put out for our consumption. But these things are very calorie dense, and they transit fast because they're ultra processed. The more you have to chew something, the longer it takes to go through your system. You want that. That is how the GLP-1 medications are working, one of the mechanisms. You do not want something that you're going to drink and that protein gets absorbed right into the bloodstream, again, shooting up, potential sugars, depending on what is added to that protein powder, and then causing insulin resistance. And then it doesn't stay in your system very long. So now you're getting, hormonal messages to your brain that you're hungrier sooner, because you had the ultra-processed proteins or sugars and proteins added together in a whole variety of products. High-protein cereals, high-protein pancakes, like all of this. Not your best choices, especially if you're trying to avoid insulin resistance, okay, and weight gain. So, avoiding high-processed foods, ultra-processed foods, and high-sugar content foods including white flour, which gets into your blood sugar even faster than table sugar, believe it or not. So you want to avoid those type foods and eat whole foods. Fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, lean protein sources from animals or other sources if you're a vegan or a vegetarian. It doesn't matter, but the whole premise is eating foods that are as close to their natural setting as if you grew them. And the way I tell people is you have to be able to pick it, grow it, kill it, or catch it. And then if that's most likely, if it's in the state of one of those four, then you can eat it because it's closest to its whole food form. All right, so those are two things: exercising after you eat, and then avoiding ultra processed foods and high refined sugar foods. Those are two things that you can do behaviorally to minimize your insulin resistance. Now, insulin resistance can also occur having separate to do than things you eat, and usually though it's in combination. Two other things is, number one, high levels of stress. I mean, and who doesn't have high levels of stress right now? I don't have a single client that is not struggling in some realm of their life with a stress. Even just living, with our devices now, the time expediency of having to get back to people that with notifications and emails and texts and messages coming at us, like a tsunami every minute of the day, that right there is stressful, right? So we're all under stress if you're living in 21st century America, for sure. And having that high level of stress is producing a lot of cortisol, and that is a contributor to insulin resistance. So, building in stress management techniques, the deep breathing, earthing and forest bathing, going out into nature and a hike on the weekends, and, going out in your backyard, taking off your shoes and just, putting your feet in the grass and walking on it. These are all very simple stress lowering, methods. There are a ton of apps that you can get for breathing. What I have people do is do some biofeedback. You can get a oxygen pulse meter, oxygen reader, not a pulse meter, for $25 that you can put on your finger, and you can check your oxygen saturation levels, and then do like 5 minutes of a visualization, and then put that monitor back on, and you will see that your oxygenation is higher. All right, that's one of the ways you can use biofeedback to help to, actually observe whether or not you're lowering stress, okay? And lowering stress and mitigating it and kind of managing it ongoingly is going to help you to avoid insulin resistance. And the fourth thing I want to tell you about is sleep. So really interesting, sleep deprivation, poor quality of sleep, maybe getting the right amount of hours, but going to bed really late and then waking up late in the mornings is throwing off your circadian rhythm. There's a lot of sleep issues right now. Most of my clients, when I have a client that says they're sleeping really well, I'm like, you should be really happy because you are definitely in the minority. Most people are struggling with sleep issues right now, and chronic low hours of sleep, poor sleep stages, not getting enough REM sleep, which is at the later stages of the sleep cycle, not getting enough deep sleep, which is at the beginning stages of the sleep cycle. They can lead to poor quality sleep, and then because you're not getting the rejuvenation effects of your sleep, that can also factor into a higher insulin resistance. So, making sleep a priority and a focus. I'm guilty of this. Most of my life, I'm one of those people that said, I'll sleep when I'm dying, and I corrupted sleep. And I have noticed that since I turned 60, I can't get away with that anymore, and nor do I really want to, but the difference I can notice in my own energy and, mood, and if I had a blood panel draw, the research is now showing that one poor night's sleep, when they then study in randomized controlled studies, it can increase insulin resistance that very next day. All right. Imagine if that's happening on a chronic, ongoing basis for months, if not years, and in some cases decades. This is a contributor to high insulin resistance. All right. So 4 main factors to the insulin resistance, and that is what you're eating. High ultra processed foods and high sugar flour foods. Number 2, sedentary lifestyle and not timing your moving to correspond with your meals. Many people eat late at night, then go to bed and undereat through the day. That is not a very good schedule, and you can call that intermittent fasting, but watch one of my other podcasts on intermittent fasting. It's the wrong administration of that if that's what you're doing. So timing your activity around meals so that you can get that sugar out of your blood and into the working muscles will help with insulin resistance. And then, getting, building in stress management techniques, and then prioritizing sleep. So those are the 4 biggies for controlling insulin resistance. And, again, remind you, it's not just important for weight management, of which it is, but chronic illness, insulin resistance is an underlying mechanism that goes on for years that we can catch before it manifests into a chronic illness. All right, buddy, if you are, intrigued with the information you just heard and you want to join a community of like-minded people where you're getting this information and part of a community where you're getting participating in monthly group Zoom meetings about topics related to health and vitality and weight management and fitness and energy, then you want to join my platform called Your2nd50.life. Check it out, and I certainly hope to see you there soon, and if not, in another podcast even sooner. Be well, everybody.
And if you'd like to have access to some of my additional resources, I can be found at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on my website, www.judyterrell.com.